Hi, Xavier right at the top of the house now, and my tree's dying because I just didn't care for them well enough in the heat. Well, what I want to do is just show you two really classic trees, and I just want to reassure you that there's a difference between dead and dying and just a bit of heat stroke and recovering. So we'll have a look, but before we do that, I just want to send out a shout out to Tony of Tony's Bonsai. Obviously he shouted out my channel as the Bonsai Challenge, and you'll hear in a minute that I'll actually be releasing that one on Sunday. Well, it sounds like someone's here to deliver stuff, but I just want to say I think he's doing an absolutely fantastic job, and for me, someone who's been doing bonsai for 30 odd years, some of the stuff he's showing at a level that makes it look as though it's easy for anyone to do, and truthfully it should be easy for anyone to do. You know, great stuff. So if you haven't found him, which I'd be very surprised if you haven't, this guy is someone that you really want to start watching. So
although I might have got a parcel if you would.
Got a parcel for me son, don't know what it is yet, but it's clearly not a present for me. By the way, it's raining. UK has officially had its summer now, and now we go back to normal. Okay, so we should be well familiar with my silver birch Yamadori. I think it's repotted 2 or 3 years ago. Very healthy, and yet, despite all my attempts to protect it, all of those leaves, all of them, have actually died. And a little bit later today, I'll be removing them. You know, part of me was feeling pretty devastated because I thought, you know, I kept it watered, I thought it would be fine, and there's nothing wrong with the roots, but it's just, this is how the tree protects itself against the heat. But what you can see, and if I close up there, those buds where those dead leaves are nice and green, and that's just telling me that the tree's going to be healthy. I'll do a full defoliation, well, the leaves are dead already, and then I'll bud it back. So I don't need to worry about that. It's disappointing. My protection didn't seem to work, so obviously it was more adverse to the conditions, whereas my maple did fine. The Dawn Redwood, we've got a little bit of, yeah, it's dry, it's definitely dry, so there's going to be some stunting in development. We've got a Zelkova here, absolutely fine. Azaleas, this larch here, definitely dried out, so it's losing needles, and this is one of the healthy ones, but it's in a smaller pot. Maples, Trident maple, you know, love this tree, but yeah, that's got drying on it. The Ginkgo leaves, I can tell they're just feeling just a little bit dry, but overall I'm happy they're going to be fine. But the real surprise was this one. Again, good old Zelkova. I was going to be doing a prune on it, and I did notice this year that it wasn't actually putting out much flush, and normally by now I'd have had to prune this, and we've seen this, all those leaves are dead. So all those leaves will have to come off, and I'll treat it like I did with cork bark elm. But what is the actual difference? Why did that one dry out and the other Zelkova not? Bear in mind that they're literally 15 feet from each other. And if you look back in that video, you'll know that was the one tree that I left out in the sun. On one of the days when I spent the day on the M25 car park because of the fossil fuel protesters, it dried out. I didn't get a chance to see it. But it also tells me that the soil must be pretty compacted. And obviously that's a sign that although it got watered that day, the percolation of the soil wasn't good enough for it to do anything more than sit on the surface and be absorbed by the sun. Hence it's dried out, and it needed to be watered a lot more. So both trees are alive, both trees will be fine. It's just one of them I now know that I definitely need to repot next year. So, indicators. So, moving on from that, what other calamitous did we have? Calamitous? I don't even know if calamitous is a word. Scots Pine. Well, I wouldn't call it Scots Pine, it's not anything. Well, I know it is, it's dead. The heat was the final nail for this one, but it wasn't the heat that did it. It was, in this case, this is an example of what happens when you take off too much stuff. Yeah, I think that's dead. I'm not sure. Bit of cut paste on that. I might get some buds back budding here on this. No, this is dead as. This is an example, certainly with pines, where I just took off too much needles. And the key thing I keep stressing about pines, even though they seem difficult to understand, and there's single flush, multi-flush. I mean, my toilet's always a multi-flush because the kids never flush it the first time. Where did I go with that? Anyway, you need to keep the needles on. If you haven't got a really strong, stable, solid root structure down there first, then you're always at risk when you're doing your development on your pines. But I've discovered that if I'm doing any sort of pruning or any sort of heavy work on my pine, if I haven't got a good root structure, this is what happens. And the way you get a good root structure, don't take the candles off, don't do any heavy work, do wiring, but just let it go. Really, really let it go and let those roots build. And once it's got that, all those needles, all the energy comes in, the roots get bigger. And then from there comes the strength. The energy isn't in the vascular tissue, it's in the roots. If your roots aren't up to it, it's going to die more than likely. It's going to respond badly to your pruning, which is what that was. I pruned it too much, and it's the same principle, I believe, with junipers, and probably answers the question I keep having, why do I struggle with junipers? Because I tend to treat them like I would a deciduous tree. You know, I think just when I leave a little bit on there, you know, it's gonna come back and be strong, because of course in the deciduous a lot of the strength is in the vascular tissue, so that's why you can do such heavy root pruning on them. But with pines, you've got to build from the roots first, otherwise that's what happens. So the next one is my larch forest. What does happen with a lot of these, and again it's about roots, is I took 8 or 9 trees, machines I can't count. This one was healthy, but trying to get it into this composition, I compromised the root structure too much, and the roots weren't able to get the nutrients or supplements they needed from the soil. Hence we have a severe case of leaf wilt, and I would hazard that's probably, I mean it's still quite flexible, but what that will tell you is that if it's really, really struggling, that if you get any extremes of weather, that is the nail. And I have no doubt that this tree is officially G for goner, and the good place for that is with the dam busters. Some things you can tell are dead, which I've just shown you. Some things will have already given you the signs, but ultimately the answer to the earlier ones, one of those trees, silver birch, was actually in a more prominent position in the garden, so the canopy was actually in the sun a lot more often. With the elms, again, it wasn't about the watering, it was about soil percolation. The only way I could know that was seeing that happen. But these things happen, you know. If you're going to go into bonsai, be prepared for this stuff, but look for signs early. If a tree's unhappy, it will show you the symptoms. Normally the first symptom is signs of insects and bacteria and stuff like that. A really healthy tree is pretty good at fighting off such stuff. Anyway, please let me know if you want me to do a premiere on Sunday. If you really want to see that and you want to correspond with me via the chat, then get in the comments, give me a time. So from Xavier at the top of the house, near the back door and near my daughter's front door, I'll say farewell.